think what's most interesting about geladas is the fact that they live in these enormous groups. We've counted up to 1,200 individuals, all in one setting. Like humans, geladas face this problem where they only know a subset of the animals that they come into contact with every day. And most primates, except most primates outside of geladas, use individual recognition to dictate their interactions with those animals. And so individual recognition is how they decide who they like and who they don't like and who they fight with and who they don't fight with. Whereas in geladas, they only recognize a very small group of animals. So then they have to figure out how they're going to interact with and deal with all the other animals that are out there. And so I think humans face very similar problems.
Often the first thing they do in the morning is they come up from these cliffs. They go out to the grassland area above the cliffs. It's a highland sort of plateau. And the first thing they do in the morning is they sit right by the edge where they were sleeping and they socialize. And sometimes they do it for 20 minutes, sometimes they do it for 2 hours. They'll sit around, groom each other, sort of sit close together, have friendly interactions. And then after that's over, they go out and feed. And then they're basically feeding most of the day until they come back in the evening. And then they socialize again for a little bit and then they go to bed. In most of these species, the males have the say, and the females can control things in pretty subtle ways, but they don't have much control over who they get to mate with or things like that. Typically, it's the dominant male who gets to mate, and the females can't do too much about that. Geladas are unusual in that the females do seem to be able to both choose who wins these fights, but also there's reports of females kicking out a male that they don't like. So if he's not grooming him enough or he's just not, attentive enough, they can kick him out. So the fact that there's so much female control in the gelada society is pretty unusual. The males sort of have a hard situation because you can tell sometimes, say, if there's bachelors in the distance, they would like to move their females away from the bachelors, but they don't really have a way to do that because if they're aggressive to the females, that's bad for them. They don't want to make the females unhappy. So you can see they're sort of anxiously trying to push the females away, but they don't really know how to steer them away. The males that have this harem, they'll often approach the bachelors, and the bachelors are the guys who are out there trying to take their females away from them. And they'll provoke this sort of ritualized chase where the bachelors will follow the leader male around. They'll kind of run around the group, and then at the end, the leader male usually goes up in a tree or up on top of a hill and does this display call, which is a repeated two-syllable vocalization that's very loud, and they often shake branches and draw a lot of attention to themselves. And we're sort of in the process of trying to figure out what that means when they do that. We think it's indicating some aspect of the male's condition or quality or how good of a male he is. And he's probably in a way saying, don't bother fighting me, I'm really strong, I'm really impressive, I can make this really loud call, and you'd be better off going after somebody else, is what he's, I think, telling the bachelors.
The chest patch itself is indicating what's going on in the internal environment. And so we think that hormones are a mechanism for the color that's on the chest patch. If males are competing, if males are trying to choose who they should fight or who they shouldn't fight, they should be able to assess the situation before getting involved and then figuring out, I can't win this fight. I've gotten in over my head. And this is true of a lot of animals. That they should be able to assess one another prior to getting involved in a fight. And that you should only get involved in a fight if you think you're going to win. And so lots of animals have evolved systems where they can assess another animal based on a signal. We're hypothesizing that this chest patch in the geladas is one of these signals. It's an honest signal of quality and of strength that could be used by males to assess rivals, could be used by females to assess mates, could be used by both. We're not really all that sure yet. It does seem the data is starting to point that the males almost certainly use this as a way of assessing other males.
The geladas, I think, are in a lot of ways more similar to humans in the sense that it's a more equitable relationship, and there's more of a need to create a bond rather than just sort of, in a lot of monkeys, the biggest, strongest male wins and he gets to mate with the female, and that's the way it works. Whereas the geladas, because they have these harems, the same male will be with the same females for several years. And so there's a really importance in forming a strong social bond and staying close together and working sort of together as a team that's more like, I think, humans.
So you get this difference between humans and chimpanzees. Humans differ from chimpanzees in being less aggressive and more pro-social. You seem to be getting the same difference between baboons and geladas. They're also close relatives, with geladas being less aggressive and more pro-social. So in that sense, geladas actually would be a very good analogy for looking at the evolution of human sociality and getting away from aggression to solve problems.